My son said, "You're just a burden now," and then he slapped me. That's how my Christmas started. Not with music or hugs. Not with family or warmth. Just those words. Then the slap. I didn't see it coming. I didn't think he meant it, not until I felt the sting. That's when everything changed. He told me I was an old fool, and then he slapped me. That was my Christmas gift. Not wrapped, not hidden, not softened. Just his palm, the sharp echo of it, and then his silence. I didn't cry. Not then. I remember thinking how strange it was, standing there in my own kitchen, staring at the pie I had just pulled out of the oven. Steam still danced off the golden crust like nothing had happened. Like my son hadn't just raised his hand to me on Christmas Eve. My name is Margaret Taylor. I'm 75 years old. Widow. Former schoolteacher. I spent my life shaping other people's children, but somehow raised a man who could strike his mother and call it stress. Maybe I knew, somewhere deep inside, that this moment was coming. Maybe that's why the slap didn't surprise me as much as it should have. I'd spent the week preparing everything. Ryan liked pecan pie, so I'd made two. One for dessert, and one for him to take home. I found the old photo of him and his father at the lake. He was only 8, still chubby-cheeked and beaming. I framed it. Wrapped it. Wrote a note inside. "You are still that boy to me." I baked his favorite dinner, chicken and dumplings, even though my hands ache from arthritis. I wore the brooch he gave me when he was 12, a plastic thing from a fair, gaudy and sweet. I cleaned the entire house, vacuumed twice, put clean sheets in the guest room just in case they stayed. I lit pine-scented candles. I even bought new napkins, red with gold trim. When he arrived, I felt my stomach twist with that old nervous joy. Like maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. Maybe he'd see me. Not as a burden, not as an obligation, but as his mother. But Ryan walked in already annoyed, already distracted. "Is that the smell of onions?" he asked, wrinkling his nose. That tone sharp, disgusted. I nodded, already bracing myself. "Just a little in the dumplings you always liked." "I have meetings tomorrow, Mom. I can't go around reeking of food like some old diner cook." That one sentence made me feel worthless. Like a servant in my own home. Like I should be ashamed for cooking. I laughed nervously, tried to brush it off. "You used to call it magic soup. Remember?" He didn't answer. Just took off his coat and tossed it over the arm of the sofa. Didn't even look at me. Not a hug. Not a thank you. Nothing. His wife, Amanda, followed him in, eyes locked on her phone. She didn't even say hello. I said, "Hi, Amanda," but she only nodded slightly, like I was someone handing her a receipt. I brought the food to the table. Lit the candles. Put on soft Christmas music. I'd even made place cards, like I used to when he was a boy. Mine had a little holly drawn on the corner. I waited for Ryan to notice. He didn't. He sat down, sighing, thumbing through emails on his phone. "Dinner's ready," I said, hoping for a smile. He didn't look up. "Can we make this quick?" Amanda mumbled something about a party later. "A real one," she called it. My chest tightened. Like I wasn't real. Like I didn't count. She said it with a kind of amused smirk, like the idea of being here was just a chore she had to get through. They picked at their food. Amanda barely ate. Ryan checked his watch more than he used his fork. I tried to ask about work, tried to make conversation. "How's the new product launch going?" I asked. He gave a tight, annoyed smile. "It's fine. Not something you'd understand." I had spent hours reading about his company, watching interviews, learning terms. But to him, I was still just the clueless old woman. It felt like being swatted away like a fly. Amanda didn't look up once. Not when I asked about her family. Not when I complimented her earrings. Nothing. After dinner, I brought out the pie. Set it down like a peace offering. "Your favorite," I said, almost pleading. He didn't even look. Just kept scrolling his phone. Amanda looked up long enough to say, "I'm trying to cut sugar," and then returned to her phone. "I framed something for you too." I handed him the gift, hands shaking. He opened it like he was being forced to. Looked at the photo. "This? Why would I want this?" "It's ancient." "It's your father," I said, voice small. And you. At the lake. I remember, he said flatly. But I don't want to decorate my office with old memories. My heart broke right there. He didn't see the love behind the gift. The effort. He just saw clutter. Just a piece of junk from someone who meant nothing. Amanda stood. We should go. The car's coming in 15. I followed Ryan as he went to grab his coat. Touched his sleeve gently. Ryan, before you go, can we talk? About the house. He stiffened like I'd insulted him. His face twisted. I know you asked me to co-sign that second mortgage. I've been thinking. It's a lot, and if something happened to you. He turned on me. So that's it? After everything I do for you, you can't even help when I need it. Everything he does for me? My mind raced. What had he done lately? Called me? Visited me? Paid a bill? No. He meant showing up for dinner like I owed him. I didn't say no, I tried. I just wanted to understand more. His voice rose. I don't have time for this. I came here to be nice, and now you're making it about you again. You always do this. My legs felt weak. He sounded disgusted. Like I was some parasite. A problem. Amanda turned away like she was embarrassed by the scene. I reached for him. Ryan, please. He raised his hand. Just stop talking. And then he slapped me. Amanda gasped, but didn't speak. Didn't move. Just stood there, watching. Watching like it wasn't real. He looked at me like I was nothing. You always ruin everything. And then he walked out. Just like that. Amanda followed, scrolling her phone, already typing something. I stood in silence, staring at the framed photo on the floor. It had fallen when he turned. The glass cracked across my husband's face. I didn't pick it up. I walked to the table, sat down, and ate a slice of pie. It was warm. Sweet. Bitter. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling. Thought about every Christmas I had worked so hard to make magical. Every loan I helped with. Every time he needed something and I dropped everything to help. Every time I stayed quiet to keep the peace. Every time I said yes when I wanted to say no. Never once had he asked how I was. Or if I was okay. Or what I needed. I remembered when he didn't call on my birthday. When he told Amanda I was too emotional. When he used my credit to secure a business loan without even telling me. When he told a cousin I was getting forgetful because I questioned something on a bill. I remembered when he told me not to embarrass him at a charity dinner. When he called me old-fashioned for asking about his business. I thought about all the times I defended him. Made excuses. Lied to myself. He's just tired. He's under pressure. He doesn't mean it. But he did mean it. Every time. He knew exactly what he was doing. And this Christmas, he showed me exactly who he was. My son doesn't love me. Not really. He loves what I give. What I can do. What I represent. He loves control. And this time, something changed. Not a loud change. Not a scream. Just something quiet. Final. I wouldn't explain it. Not yet. But I knew this was the last Christmas I waited to be chosen. Next year, I would choose myself. I didn't tell anyone what happened that night. Not right away. Not even the next day. I sat in the quiet of my house, not touching the dishes, not turning on the radio, not even changing out of the sweater I'd worn to serve dinner. I kept waiting for something to pull me out of the silence. A knock at the door. A call. A text. An apology. But nothing came. The silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt like a judgment. Like the walls of my house were watching me, waiting to see what I would do. I didn't even move the broken picture frame. It stayed where it fell, glass cracked across the smiles of a younger, happier time. I walked through my house slowly that morning, like I was wandering through a museum of a life I used to love. My fingers trailed over picture frames, over shelves where his drawings once sat, over the place near the back door where his muddy boots used to live. My home felt different. Smaller somehow. Dimmer. I kept hearing his words. Over and over. You're just a burden now. Like a stain on repeat. My own son. I'd given him everything. My time, my money, my heart. And yet, all he saw was weight. That morning, I stood in front of the mirror in my bedroom and looked at myself. Really looked. My cheek was a little red, not from the slap, it had faded, but from the pressure I'd felt all night pressing against my skin. The kind of pressure that didn't leave bruises but left you aching anyway. I made tea and sat at the table. I didn't drink it. I just sat. The kitchen still smelled faintly of cinnamon and fried chicken. My back ached from standing too long the night before. My hands trembled slightly, like they had ever since my diagnosis 3 years ago, something Ryan called just age. When I first told him, he had barely paused. Well, as long as you can still drive, right? That was Ryan. No softness. No concern. Just a comment, said with a chuckle and a pat on my shoulder like I was a stranger at a bus stop. I had been holding those moments inside for years. The tiny cuts. The looks. The forgotten birthdays. The jokes at my expense. The time he told his assistant not to schedule calls during mom maintenance hours. The way he always introduced me to others as just retired, like a footnote to his success. Like my life had ended the day he left for college. I thought about the Thanksgiving when Amanda brought store-bought stuffing after I had spent 2 days cooking and Ryan said, in front of everyone, finally, something edible. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. Because that's what I'd learned to do. Swallow the insult. Smile. Keep going. I thought about the time he borrowed my car for 3 weeks and returned it with an empty tank and crumbs in the back seat. No thank you. No gas. No apology. When I mentioned it gently, he said, you weren't using it anyway. And I thought about all the times he turned my small kindness into obligations. I drove him to the airport once, and he joked afterward that I was practically his Uber. When I mailed him homemade cookies, he texted back, do you have to use so much butter? No thank you. No kindness. Just criticism. Every small thing stacked on top of the last, until it became a wall I could no longer see past. And on Christmas Eve, he topped it off with the back of his hand. I thought about being his mother. Really thought about it. I remembered his first fever. Sitting beside him all night, pressing a cool cloth to his forehead, whispering stories when the medicine didn't kick in fast enough. I remembered sewing his Halloween costumes, staying up late to make sure the cape was just the right length. I remembered his college acceptance letter, how I cried when I saw the envelope, how I worked extra hours to help with his books. I remembered all the times he called me when things went wrong, his car broke down, he missed a flight, Amanda left him for 2 weeks. Every time I was there. Every time, without question. Without needing to be asked. And yet, I didn't remember the last time he asked me how I was. That morning, after sitting in silence for hours, I opened my closet and pulled out an old shoebox. Inside were letters. From parents of students I had taught. Notes scribbled in crayon. Photographs. Newspaper clippings. A whole life of being appreciated. Of being someone who mattered. None of those letters were from Ryan. I sat there, my hand resting on a note from a child I hadn't seen in decades, and cried for the first time in a long, long time. Not just because of the slap. Not just because of Christmas. But because I had been pretending for too many years that this kind of treatment was normal. And it wasn't. I remembered one day, years ago, when my husband had warned me gently. You spoil him, Maggie, he'd said. One day, he'll forget what it cost you. And that's what hurt most. Not the slap, but the forgetting. The complete and total erasure of everything I had ever done to hold his life together. He forgot that when he was scared, it was me who sat at the edge of his bed. He forgot that I took night shifts at the school to save for his camp. He forgot that I sold my mother's ring to pay for his last semester when he said he just needed a little help. He forgot me. I wasn't a mother to him anymore. I was a resource. And the moment I questioned giving more, I became a burden. That realization, quiet, cold, permanent, was the moment I changed. It didn't come with fireworks. Just stillness. Just a quiet promise inside myself, no more. No more pretending I didn't hear the insults. No more letting Amanda's cold smiles slide by. No more giving and giving until I had nothing left to hold for myself. I stood up, walked back to the kitchen, picked up the cracked photo frame. I looked at my husband's face, split by a jagged line. Then at the boy beside him. Ryan, age 8. I whispered to that boy. I don't know where you went. And then I put the photo away. I didn't throw it out. But I didn't put it back on the shelf either. Because the woman I was on Christmas Eve, the one who set the table with care and waited for scraps of kindness, she didn't live here anymore. And the woman I was becoming? She would be nothing like the one he thought he knew. The next day, I made myself breakfast. Just toast and eggs. No fancy napkins. No extra plate just in case he changed his mind and came over. He didn't. Instead, my phone buzzed with a single message from Amanda. Hope you're feeling better. Not sorry. Not even from him. I looked at that message and realized how far gone they both were. How little they thought of me. Amanda had watched it happen. Had said nothing. Had probably defended him the moment they got in the car. She was the same woman who once said, "He gets so stressed, he just needs space," when I told her he hadn't spoken to me in 3 months. They both needed me quiet. They needed me small. But I wasn't going to be anymore. I went to the bank. I checked my accounts. I reviewed the automatic transfers, the quiet ones I'd set up over the years. Mortgage help. Emergency fund top-ups. Car maintenance. I printed out every line. Every dollar I'd given, every silent favor I'd offered. Then I made a decision. It was time to protect what I had left. And it was time to stop pretending that love meant sacrifice without end. This was no longer about forgiveness. This was about freedom. And I was finally ready for it. The first thing I stopped doing was answering the phone. Not out of spite, not as a game. I just didn't see the point anymore. Every call from Ryan came with a request. Every voicemail from Amanda carried that same tired tone, polite on the surface, but always ending in some version of, "We just thought maybe you could help." So I didn't help. Not this time. I let the messages pile up. Then, one by one, I turned things off. The monthly payment I'd been sending to cover their home insurance? Gone. The grocery app where I'd automatically reload their balance every month? Closed. The automatic deposit to Ryan's emergency fund, something I had created years ago, back when he first started his company, canceled. With each small removal, I felt my body straighten. My hands stopped trembling. My chest felt lighter. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. It was something else. A kind of calm I hadn't felt in years. I didn't tell them. I didn't need to. I had told them enough over the years with every yes, every silence, every "it's no trouble." Now, I let my absence speak. The snow came down steady that week. Thick and quiet. I'd always loved the way it made everything sound softer. Cleaner. Now it felt like the world was resetting itself around me. I pulled out old files from the cabinet in the hallway. Documents. Bank statements. Legal papers. I reviewed everything. I made sure my will was up to date. I removed Ryan as power of attorney. I called my lawyer and scheduled a meeting. When he asked if I wanted to explain, I said no. Just make the changes. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to justify my choices. Ryan had taught me that. Not through wisdom, but through example. I remembered when he signed a lease for that downtown office without telling anyone. When I asked him how he could afford it, he waved me off. "I always find a way," he said. "That's what winners do." What he meant was, I always find someone else to carry the cost. For years, that someone had been me. He called me his safety net once. Said it with a wink, like it was some kind of compliment. Like I should be proud to always be the one catching him when he fell. But nets tear. Nets wear thin. And I was tired of being stretched to breaking. On the second day of silence, Amanda texted again. "Do you still have the spare charger? Ryan can't find his." I didn't answer. On the third day, Ryan finally called. No message. Just the missed call icon blinking on my phone. I stared at it. The name. The man behind it. And I let it go dark. He had only ever called when he needed something. Never just to say hello. Never to check in. Never to ask how I slept or what I dreamed or if I'd seen something funny on TV. That used to hurt. Now, it just felt like proof. I bundled up and walked to the grocery store. It was cold and my knees ached, but I took my time. I bought the small bag of oranges I liked. The coffee brand he said tasted cheap. I smiled at the cashier. Took my time packing the bags. No rush. No pressure. It felt good to move through the world without waiting for someone's approval. Back home, I deleted the family calendar from my computer. No more reminders for Amanda's birthday. No more syncing to Ryan's work events. No more automatic RSVPs to things I was never really wanted at. That's when it happened. As I was clearing files, I found something I hadn't looked at in years, an old email thread between me and Ryan from over a decade ago. It was the year after his father passed. The year he lost his job and moved back home for 3 months. I had just retired early to help him recover. I read the messages, my offers to help with rent, to proofread his resume, to cook his favorite meals. I read his replies. I don't know what I'd do without you. You're the only one who understands. You saved me. And I cried. Not because they were beautiful, but because I realized how temporary his gratitude had been. How easily it disappeared the moment I stopped being useful. I could have emailed him back that night. I could have reminded him who I had been. But I didn't. I chose silence. I chose it not because I was bitter, but because I was tired of begging to be remembered. There was another memory I couldn't shake. A night years ago, long before the Christmas slap, when I stood in the kitchen after paying one of Ryan's overdue bills. I had just sent the payment through and called to let him know. He answered with a sigh and said, "Well, that took you long enough." No thank you. No relief. Just expectation. And I remember standing there, holding the phone, my hands shaking, not from anger, but from heartbreak. I had stayed up until midnight on hold with the utility company, sorting out a mess he had made, and he didn't even blink. That moment came back to me now like a ghost. It was never just the money. It was the way he expected it, the way he absorbed my help like it was owed. I went to the kitchen that night and made myself dinner. Nothing fancy. Just soup and bread. I sat at the table, lit a single candle, and realized something else. I had been mourning the son I used to have. The little boy who used to draw me pictures. Who once gave me a lopsided bouquet of wildflowers and said, "You're my best girl." That boy was gone. And in his place stood a man who couldn't look me in the eye unless he wanted something. I had kept giving, hoping the boy would come back. But he wouldn't. Not now. Maybe not ever. So I chose a different kind of hope. I took my time cleaning the house. I played music. I lit a candle. I opened the windows for an hour just to let in the fresh air. For the first time, the house felt like it belonged to me again. And that night, I didn't wait for the phone to ring. I watched the snow fall outside, the lights from the street casting long, golden shadows across the living room floor. I wrapped myself in the old quilt my mother made. I poured a cup of tea, and I sat there alone, but not lonely. Because I finally understood something. You don't have to be cruel to take your life back. You just have to stop handing it over to people who never asked how heavy it was to carry. That understanding didn't erase the hurt. It didn't undo the years. But it made room inside me. Room for quiet. For peace. For dignity. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged to myself again. The silence didn't last long. Not once the money stopped. By the 5th day, Amanda called twice in a row. Then a 3rd time. Her messages started out light, "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're okay." But by the end of the week, they were sharp and laced with panic. "Margaret, we need to talk. Something's going on with the bank. Call me." Ryan didn't call. He texted. "Is there an issue with the account?" Didn't go through. No greeting. No concern. Just that. I didn't respond. I didn't owe them that anymore. For years I had answered every call, no matter how late. Had listened to every excuse. Had apologized for things that weren't my fault. That part of me was gone. The next morning, I got a knock on my door. Amanda. She was dressed for business, as if her blazer could change the tone. She didn't smile when I opened the door. She didn't ask if I was okay. She walked in like she owned the place. "Is there a reason the mortgage transfer didn't go through this month?" she asked, not sitting down. I looked at her. I really looked. She was fidgeting, her voice too tight, her confidence thin. I could see the fear under her anger. The worry. Yes, I said simply. She blinked. And I stopped it. Why would you do that without telling us? There it was. The word. Us. Like we were a team. Like she hadn't stood by while her husband humiliated me. Because, I said calmly, it's not my responsibility. She opened her mouth to argue. And this time, she didn't stop. She paced, arms crossed, voice rising with every word. Do you understand how irresponsible this is? We built our budget around your help. We counted on you. What are we supposed to do now? Start over. She didn't even pause to let me answer. You could have given us a heads up. But instead, you're punishing us? Over what? One argument. You're going to tear apart your family over some misunderstood moment. Misunderstood. That's what she called it. She stood there, rattling off accusations, trying to guilt me back into submission. But her voice didn't land the way it used to. It sounded desperate. Hollow. You're being manipulative, she snapped. You want us to beg, don't you? That's what this is. You want to feel powerful. It's disgusting. She left in a huff, slamming the door behind her so hard a photo on the hallway wall tilted sideways. That night, the phone rang again. Ryan, you've lost it, he said the moment I answered. Amanda's crying. She's scared. Do you feel good about that? Making your own family panic? I didn't say anything. You've always been dramatic, but this is selfish. I'm running a business, trying to keep things together, and now you've pulled the rug out from under us? Are you trying to ruin us? Still, I said nothing. You know what? Fine. Be that way. But don't expect us to clean up after you when your bills start piling up. Don't expect anyone to show up when you fall apart. He hung up before I could even respond. A day later, Amanda sent a group message to our extended family. Margaret's been acting erratically. We're worried. She's cut off contact. If anyone hears from her, please let us know. I read it 3 times. So that's how they wanted to spin it. Paint me as unstable. Make themselves the victims. Control the narrative. That had always been their style. Use concern as camouflage. The next day, I got a message from a family friend. Heard there's tension. Ryan says you're not well. Everything okay? That's how people like him survive. Not by fixing things, but by rewriting them. The anger that rose in me then wasn't hot. It was cold. Focused. I wrote a short message back. I'm fine. I've just stopped apologizing for being used. Then I turned off my phone. In the days that followed, the pressure mounted. Amanda emailed. Ryan left voice notes. A cousin reached out. The messages changed tone, first confused, then blaming, then pleading. You've always been the glue. Why are you breaking us apart now? This isn't like you. You're acting out. We didn't think you'd actually do this. You're hurting the people who love you. I read each one. I let them sit. And I remembered every moment they'd sat silently while I was insulted, dismissed, forgotten. The glue, they said. But no one asks glue how it feels to be stretched and pulled and cracked just to keep everything else together. And when it breaks, they blame the glue. That week, I started packing boxes. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I didn't need a house full of memories that only served others. I wanted light, space, choice. I donated some things. Called a realtor. Scheduled a valuation. Quietly. Without fanfare. Just like all the things I'd done for them. Unseen. One afternoon, I ran into Amanda at the grocery store. She walked past me. No hello. No nod. Just tight lips and cold eyes. Like I was the one who'd betrayed her. I stood my ground. I smiled. That was fine. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was just out of reach. The panic had turned into punishment. Accusations. Gossip. Smears. Desperate attempts to paint me into the corner they were so used to keeping me in. But it didn't work. Because I had already let go. And that terrified them more than anything. But the most unexpected thing happened a week later. The most unexpected thing happened a week later. A letter arrived. A real one, ink on paper, carefully folded. Not from Ryan, not from Amanda. From someone I hadn't seen in over 10 years. Mrs. Green, my old neighbor from when we lived on Maple Drive. She had heard what happened, not from gossip, but through someone who had seen me at the market and mentioned I seemed calmer lately. She wrote, "You always held everything together. I don't think we ever thanked you. But I saw it, Margaret. I saw how much of yourself you gave. I read that line 3 times. Maybe more." She ended the letter simply. "It's not wrong to want peace. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I folded it carefully and placed it on the table beside my tea. For the first time in weeks, I cried. Not the kind of tears that come from frustration or exhaustion. These were quiet, clean tears of being seen, not used. Of being valued, not measured. Then came the visit. Ryan showed up without warning, walking up the front steps like he used to when he wanted something. His expression was hard to read. Part anger, part desperation, part something else, maybe disbelief that I still hadn't come crawling back. He stood at the door longer than I expected, like he wasn't sure what to do without the advantage. Finally, I opened it. "You're really doing this," he said. "No hello." I nodded. "You've talked to everyone but us. You've made us look like villains." "I haven't said a word about you to anyone," I replied. "People just noticed I stopped disappearing into everyone else's plans." His eyes narrowed. "You know what this looks like, right? Like you're losing it. Selling your house. Cutting everyone off. It's not a good look, Mom." There it was again. The control disguised as concern. "I'm not cutting anyone off," I said. "I'm just not financing my own dismissal anymore." Ryan laughed, sharp, bitter. "So this is about money?" "No," I said. "It's about finally accepting that you'll never see me unless I stop handing you everything you ask for." He took a step forward. "You want to destroy everything we built?" "You built it on my back," I said. The words stunned him. I saw it. For a moment, his jaw tightened. His hands clenched. Then he turned around and walked away without another word. I closed the door, heart steady. For the first time, he had no rebuttal. The next day, Amanda posted a vague message online about betrayal, about ungrateful people who pretend to be victims. It got shared, liked, commented on. I said nothing. Let them perform their version of the truth. Because I was building something else. I finalized the papers to sell the house. Signed the documents. Donated part of the proceeds, $540,000, to a local shelter and an advocacy group that had helped me understand what it means to stop being invisible. The realtor was surprised. "Are you sure?" he asked, glancing at the check. "Absolutely." "They gave me back my voice," I said. "I'm just giving back." After that, the calls slowed. The messages stopped. Even the cousins who had tried to coax me back fell quiet. Without control, they had no interest. And it was quiet. Blissfully, deeply quiet. I bought a small cottage by the water. Just 1 bedroom. Enough for me and a shelf of books. The neighbors wave. I sit on the porch with tea in the mornings and listen to the birds. No demands. No criticism. No guilt. I hung the letter from Mrs. Green in a frame by the kitchen window. Sometimes I touch the glass and remind myself, I am not selfish. I am simply no longer offering myself to people who mistake my silence for agreement. And if the phone rings now, I decide. Not out of fear. Not out of obligation. But out of choice. I keep the voicemail from my lawyer saved on my phone. The one that says, "The transfer is complete. You're free." And I replay it sometimes, not because I need reassurance, but because it reminds me that endings are not always tragedies. They can be doors. They can be light. They can be the first time you take a breath that belongs to you. If you've ever felt like you don't belong, like your presence is only welcome when it's convenient, then hear this. You are not a burden. You are not background. You are not glue. You are allowed to say enough. And when you do, you don't just save yourself. You begin again. And that's not the end of something. That's the start of everything.